Hi guys, this is jasondon.com and I'm here with a handset called the Karbonn Sparkle-V. It's our first Android One handset that we're reviewing right here. It was announced in September and once again the first Android One handset we've come across. Karbonn is a company from India and this one is a dual SIM phone, and the price tag is around $100 in India, so a very affordable device. Karbonn Mobile has a pretty interesting history and a few interesting devices. They're among the Indian companies that partnered with Google in the Android One initiative. As far as the design is concerned, this model brings forth a plastic case, a colorful case in bright red. As you can see, it's comfy, it has good grip and it sits well in the user's hand. The front is very much a fingerprint magnet and the thickness is around 10 mm for this model, while the weight is 138 grams. It's a slightly rounded device, as you can see, especially in the corners area, and it has easy one-hand use. You can easily move around all the menus with a single hand, and this is a very pocketable device. I have to say there's a bit of wasted space here, since you don't have capacitive buttons but we have virtual ones. I would call this space here wasted. And once again, no capacitive buttons. At the front we find the earpiece, which strangely it's rounded this time. We have the front camera, a bunch of sensors, and at the back we got the main camera, LED flash below, and the speaker right here. And if you decide to remove the back cover, you should start doing that from the corner here. It's a pretty flimsy back cover if you ask me. It feels very thin and light. Under the cover you can find the battery, the two SIM slots, and the micro SD card slot right here. Those are micro SIM card slots, just in case you're wondering. Let's put this back on. Okay, so at the top we find the audio jack alone. At the bottom we find the micro USB port and the small microphone next to it. On the left side, absolutely nothing, while on the right side there's the on-off button and volume buttons that have reasonably good feedback when pressed. Overall, I would call the design okay for the price of merely $100. And this model reminds me of several other handsets with affordable prices, and the first name that comes to mind, it's the Wiko brand from France, or the cheaper Lumias with plastic cases. So that's what the Karbonn Sparkle-V reminds me of. Once again, overall design for the price tag. As far as the hardware goes, we're getting a 4.5-inch screen. It's an IPS LCD in case you're wondering, and the resolution is pretty modest, 480 over 854 pixels. We have a density of 218 ppi, and inside the phone you can find the quad-core Cortex A7 1.3 GHz processor, and the identity here is MediaTek MT6582, a very popular processor used on a wide range of devices. The GPU is a Mali 400MP2, and we also get 4 GB of internal storage, 1 GB of RAM, and a micro SD card slot with support for up to 32 GB extra. The back camera is a 5 megapixel shooter with LED flash, while the front camera, I would say it's a bit of a surprise, 2 megapixel shooter that is actually pretty good. As far as the communication is concerned, we're getting Wi-Fi, we're also getting GPS, Bluetooth 4.0, GPRS and Edge, and obviously dual SIM slots I just mentioned. Other specs include FM radio and micro USB 2.0 connectivity. We also have accelerometer, proximity sensor, G sensor, and gyroscope. As far as the battery goes, there's a lithium polymer unit with a capacity of 1700 mAh. It provides you, on paper, 8 hours of talk time or 160 hours of standby time. In our test, let's see what happened. So we have some screenshots here for you. And we tested the battery, and let's see what came out of the test. As we usually did, it involves looping an HD video with Wi-Fi on and brightness of 50%, and we achieved a pretty good 6 hours and 3 minutes of HD video playback, which is quite good for a device priced at around $100. The charging is a bit long, 2 hours and 40 minutes, but I would say overall the battery is decent. There is no battery percentage shown at the top, just like it happens on Lollipop devices, and there are no power saving features that I know of. There's no CPU power saving mode and no special option available here. They may come with Lollipop, since this model has Lollipop promised for the future. And now, as far as the acoustics are concerned, you will rely on Google Play Music and on this small speaker at the back. So let's actually start listening to a tune. And now some conclusions. As you can hear, the device is not very loud, but it's clear. All the notes are heard okay. The bass is also okay. Let's say that. There is a slight muffling on a flat surface, so this is what you hear normally. And as you can hear, the flat surface muffles the sound. So basically, don't listen to music with this phone put on the table. There are also special settings here. So settings area, equalizer, pretty much stock options. We got the genre settings, we got 5 custom channels, bass, boost and surround sound, and those are the options you can play with. Overall, I would call the acoustics okay, but not more than that. And now let's see the headphones bundled with the device. This is a pretty regular and standard pair of headphones, the one that costs $2 or $3 in any shop. They're quite big but reasonably comfy in the user's ear. They come with a resilient wire. They have a big remote with a single button that you can see here, and I would say they're not loud but not very loud, and they don't have a very good bass, but once again they're okay for the price. I would also say that these headphones are a bit echoey. They have echo for no apparent reason. As I said, we also get FM radio, so let's check that out. The pretty standard interface, functions like search, speaker, record FM or mute. That was the FM feature, FM radio. Now let's put the headphones aside, and if you followed our reviews, you know we own and use a decibel meter in order to test the acoustics, and this is what we did. So here we go. This is the decibel meter. At the front of the device we achieved 80 decibels, and at the back we achieved 81.1 decibels. I would call the volume pretty weak. For example, another affordable handset we tested, the Wiko Rainbow, achieves 87 decibels, so yes, the volume can be a bit higher. Once again, for the price you pay, for $100, you get the experience you probably were expecting, maybe aside from the headphones that are a bit echoey. Now, as far as the screen is concerned, we're dealing here with a 4.5-incher, an IPS LCD with a 480 over 854 pixels. It feels like there's a protection foil on top if you look closely. By the way, there's a protection foil bundle with the device. There's no video player. You will have to rely on the Photos app that actually supports quite a few codecs, so there's that. And now let's use the app we relied on and use a test video that we usually employ in such tests. Here we go. I would call the screen reasonably bright. The colors feel just a smidge washed out. We have wide viewing angles. Of course, it's an IPS, so that was to be expected. And once again, the screen is a fingerprint magnet. We have good contrast. The pixels are of the RGB stripe kind, and the brightness achieved here is 303 lux units, which I would call so-so, since the same Wiko model mentioned before gets past 400 units. And if you really want the comparison, for example, the flagship like the LG G3 reaches 343 lux, so in comparison with that, we're not doing that bad at 303 lux, while the Xperia Z2 has 366 lux. Once again, we're not doing that bad in comparison with it. And these are the pixels of the device. As I said, RGB stripe pixels put under the microscope, and remember the brightness, 303 lux units. Just like the acoustics, the screen is okay for the price, and in case you're wondering, there are no special settings in the settings area for the display. Brightness, daydream, font size, cast screen, and that's that. Now that we've done with the acoustics and screen, and both of them are satisfactory for the price, let's handle the 5 megapixel camera at the back. It has autofocus, LED flash, and will only work if you have a microSD card in the phone. You cannot take any picture if you don't have a microSD card, so keep that in mind if you want to buy the phone and take shots with it instantly. You will use the Google Camera application. You're surely familiar with it if you downloaded it from the Play Store and play with it for the past months or so. It doesn't have very fast focus, this camera, but when it does focus, it actually does a pretty fine job at that. Picture taking is also not very fast, as you're seeing right here. So the user interface, well, on the left side you have a bunch of icons triggered by a swipe. We got photosphere, we got panorama, lens, blur, camera and video, and then we got the settings. We got resolution and quality. Resolution includes 5 megapixels in 5:3, 4.9 megapixels in 4:3, and you can go to 16:9 at 3.7 megapixels. There is front camera resolution, there is video resolution, Full HD, 720p or 480p, there's panorama resolution, high, normal or low, and there's lens blur quality, normal or low. Just in case you're wondering, lens blur is the type of shot that you take when there are two subjects in your area, one in the background, one in the foreground, and it allows you to refocus after taking the shot. You can save location, you can set the exposure to manual or automatic. Help and feedback is something else entirely, and those are the options you can play with. Another set of options are available here: front camera shortcut, flash options, HDR, grid lines, and the timer. And if you select the manual exposure, some more options will be included in the mix. I'm talking about these ones that have to do with exposure and that we actually tested at some point in time. Okay, so that's the interface. Now let's see what the camera can do. I also have to mention that we have a fast and fluid zoom, as you can see right here. Much faster and more fluid than on other handsets out there. Now let's actually take a picture that we can have a look at in order to see the level of details. Here we go. I would say that for a 5 megapixel camera we're doing quite fine with this shooter, but you don't have to believe me, you have to believe the gallery of shots I have taken. Since it's January, as you know, there's a lot of snow outside, and in spite of taking shots on a blizzard, the camera proved to be pretty impressive. So let's start with the pictures, once again taken during a blizzard, and once again surprisingly good for a 5 megapixel camera on a $100 phone. We got a panorama right here, looking quite nice, stitching up very fast, no artifacts, no problems, and even the snowflakes made the cut. We proceed with some colorful shots. These shots, as you can see, show us that we've lost focus at some point, but the ones that do work show us pretty good colors. I would call these colors not cold and not very vivid, just the right amount of color to keep you satisfied. And there is also a lens blur shot or two that we pulled here. We obviously tried that feature out since we couldn't resist it. We also tried out HDR, that seemed a bit exaggerated sometimes. So I promised you some lens blur action, so let's go to the camera, activate the lens blur feature, and then check out the series of shots and find the one that we need. Going to the series, I'm going to find that one. So I'm guessing it's this one here. Nope, this is it. That's the lens blur. As you can see, right now we're focused on the bear, but you can focus on the background and make the foreground blurry, or vice versa. Focus on the foreground and make the background blurry, and select the level of blur like that. That's what I wanted to show you. That's what the whole lens blur thing is all about. Now we go back to the gallery because I have a ton more shots to show you. Once again, they were taken during a blizzard on a very cold day, and still the colors managed to not be oversaturated or too cold. We also tried out the HDR, as I said before, and this is the first HDR sample. So we got the regular tree here and the HDR here. The picture feels a bit burned, so I'm a bit disappointed by this first attempt at an HDR. Next up, let's see what else. A bunch of more colorful shots. By the way, even the macros look good on this model, so we tried the macro here. And I have to say I'm pretty impressed. Once again, the level of detail is very good for a 5 megapixel camera, and this 5 megapixel camera sometimes feels like an 8 megapixel one, which is a good compliment. There is good contrast, good exposure and white balance. And since we can play with the exposure with the options I mentioned before, this is an example, a regular shot, then I messed with the exposure and I got this shot, just like I did here, a regular exposure, then I play with it and got this shot, so it actually works. Once again, very impressed by the level of detail. If you zoom in, you don't feel like you're missing anything, which for a 5 megapixel camera is totally impressive. good panorama, good macros and close-ups, just like this Pluto shot here. Very good for the price, feels like an 8 megapixel shooter. And now we move over to the video. I have to mention that the video is filmed in MP4 format, but the acoustics you capture are not very good. So let's see some shots. I have to say from the start that we got good colors, some focus loss, okay white balance and exposure, crisp image. You can film in Full HD, 30 frames per second. And even when you zoom in, you will see that the loss of detail is not as bad as as it is on some other models. Okay, so video number 1, MP4 Full HD, and this is video number 2, Full HD yet again, MP4 file. For a 5 megapixel camera on a $100 phone, I would say it's pretty impressive. And the aspect I didn't mention, but you probably should know, is that the camera and the device itself were not affected by the blizzard, which is something that usually happens. I saw a BBC reporter online using an iPhone as a camera, and he mentioned that if the temperature drops to -5 degrees or something like that, the iPhone will malfunction. Well, it was about -10 degrees when I used this phone, degrees Celsius of course, and it had no problem. Now you're going to see a bit of zoom in. And even the zoom in is fine, which is impressive for this camera. The bitrate of the MP4 files is 16 mega per second, which is pretty good. Overall, finally we get a pleasant surprise for a 5 megapixel shooter on the Karbonn Sparkle-V. We can also do a bit of photo editing, obviously. So you select a shot and you press this button here, and then a bunch of options appear: auto, crop, rotate, looks, tune image, selective details, then a bunch of filters, and then a bunch of frames to play with. So there's that. We proceed further into the review, and we're done with the camera, by the way. Now let's see how we're doing with the performance. So let's address the temperature issue. It's not an issue, by the way. So got a thermometer here. It's showing us 40.6 degrees Celsius, which is the temperature we achieved after playing 15 minutes of the game Riptide GP2, which is a benchmark game, and there is no overheating in spite of playing games with 3D graphics. Now on the browser area, we got Chrome as a standard browser here, and let's access gsndom.com to see how fast it loads. I would say the speed is reasonable, the browser is reasonably fast. We're scrolling, and let's check out the website in landscape mode. Pinch to zoom works just fine. And now back to the keyboard for a bit. It's a stock keyboard, but there's also a bit of swiping going on here, so you can write phone like that, and that's that. As far as the actual phone experience is concerned, first things first, we have a circular earpiece, which is kind of unusual. We have a dual SIM pair of slots here. There are options available here like add a 2-second pause, add weight. Both the SIM slots do 3G connectivity, and you can get download speeds of up to 21.6 mega per second. The call quality is okay, it's reasonably loud, and the signal is also good, so there are no objections in the phone area. Now I want to discuss about the benchmarks. Inevitably it has come to that, and we obviously did all the benchmarks we could on this model, including Antutu, Quadrant, and the likes. So I decided to compare the Karbonn Sparkle-V with the HTC Desire 310, the Evolio Neos, and the AllView V1 Viper E. The reason for this comparison: all four of these handsets use the same MediaTek NT6582 processor, and all of them have 1 GB of RAM, aside from the HTC that has 512 MB. All of them have the same 4.5-inch screen with minor resolution variations. So this model, the Karbonn Sparkle-V, scores in Quadrant 4419. It gets beaten by the HTC Desire 310, which scores 5,900 points. Meanwhile, the Evolio Neos scores 3,100 points, and the AllView V1 Viper E 7,200, so it totally beats us. Quite a good score in Antutu, 19,336. We beat the HTC Desire 310 by about 2,000 points. We beat the Evolio Neos by 7,000 points, and we also beat the AllView V1 Viper E by about 1,000 points. Next up, the number 2, a huge score, I would say, 62.3 frames per second, while the Evolio Neos had 38.8 and the Audio V1 Viper E 55.1, so we beat our rivals. Next up, there's Velamo with HTML5 test score of 1739, pretty good score, but we got beaten by the HTC Desire 310 1983, while the Evolio Neos had 1009 and the Audio V1 Viper E had 1766. Okay, next up we have 3D Mark with a low score of 3244, while the HTC Desire 310 has 3198, the Evolio Neos has 4023 and the Audio V1 Viper E 3240. And then comes GFX. Here, as you can see, the T-Rex off-screen text didn't quite work. It only shows us 235.5 frames, and then there is a comparison. You can see there's a huge difference between this model and, for example, an iPad Air 2. It has almost 20 times the frames of this model. Just for the sake of comparison, in the same test in GFX, the HTC Desire 310 scored 4.2 frames per second, while all we got here is 235.5 frames, but with different measurements. Next up, there's Geekbench 3, 363 in the single core test, 1174 in the multi-core test, while the HTC Desire 310 had 354 and 1182, Evolio Neos 276 and 877, and Audio V1 Viper E 352 and 1187. So I would say the score is reasonably good here. We also did a speed test to see how the Wi-Fi plays out. 22 mega per second download, 20 in upload, while the Evolio Neos had 22 and 22, and the Audio V1 Viper E 20 and 22. In browser mark, a pretty low score of 984, while the Evolio Neos had 431, so yes, you can go lower, and the Audio V1 Viper E 1008, so we got beaten here narrowly. Sunspider, where the lower is the better, we had a huge score of 1567, which is not good. The Desire 310 had 1277, Evolio Neos had 1506, and Audio V1 Viper E 1352. Overall, this model is able to win only 2 out of the 10 benchmarks we put it through, which is not exactly impressive. However, it's much better optimized than the rest of the phones mentioned before. It's totally lag free, it can run most of the games in the Play Store, which is a huge compliment, and has absolutely no trace of lag. I said before it can run 3D games like Riptide GP2, so here we go. This is the famous benchmark game Riptide GP2 from Vector Unit, with its kick-ass graphics, shaders and all that, dynamic lighting, water splashing on the screen, and let's see it in action on the device. Looking hot, running fast. Nice speed sensation, intuitive controls. I saw some devices out there that had nice graphics in this game, but they didn't respond well to the controls. They had a small delay between the sound and the image, and also between the controls and the image. Not this case, everything works just fine. Water splashes, speed effects, nice reflections, good looking water, so this 3D benchmark game runs just fine on the Karbonn Sparkle-V Android One handset. Okay, we also saw the water splash. Now we're done with the game, we're back to the review analysis, and we've reached the software area where we must discuss what exactly is Android One, but first let's see what we're running here. So we got Android 4.4.4 in a very much stock version. Everything is stock. Basically the Indian company Karbonn hasn't added much here. There's also the promise of getting Lollipop very soon, and the promise brought by Android One that you'll get the latest Google apps and the latest updates, software updates, for 2 years after the phone's launched. So up to 2016 you get the newest Android features on this device. People are wondering, what exactly is Android One? Android One is a Google program in partnership with a series of hardware makers like Karbonn. It's meant for developing countries. It offers stock software on devices with low prices such as this one. Google will take care of the security updates, and the first set of phones, all of them have the same MediaTek CPU, which is this one here. The partners include the Micromax, Spice and Karbonn, Indian companies among others. Here's something you should remember: the Karbonn Sparkle-V should get the software updates to Android and the latest features in line with the Nexus devices, maybe not on the same day as the Nexus, but quite fast. So via over there you should get the latest Android as soon as possible, or maybe an alternative is the new Android is too big of a requirement. So we have a Google Now home screen, as you can see right here, and we got the widget area here, which is pretty much stock. We got the app area here, we got the multitasking done like this, pretty classic. And let's see what else. We got this area for notifications, we got quick settings here. It's not Lollipop just yet, and these are the settings, nothing fancy here, just the usual options. We have OK Google support, as you can see, and a very fluid interface. As far as the pre-installed applications list is concerned, we have got all the good stock new applications that you know about. We got Calendar with its new looks, and this floating plus here, and its 5-day view. We got Chrome, we got Downloads, we got Drive, we also have FM radio, we got Gmail with its new look, and then there's Google Settings, Google Plus, also with the new interface. Then there's Hangouts, there's Keep, there's Google Maps, that works like a charm. Very fluid and very intuitive on this $100 device. I keep reminding you that to know what we're dealing with here. And next up we got messaging, we got something called Money Control. This one was pre-installed by Karbonn from India. Then we got News and Weather, also receiving an update recently. Okay, next up we have another application for online shopping that doesn't always work. Let's see if you can pick a location, maybe let's say Argentina. Okay, that's it. And then we got People, Phone, Photos, the Play Suite, Play Books, Play Games, Play Music and Play Newsstand. Then the Play Store, then Quick Office for your office needs. You can create a new document with some options here related to fonts, paragraphs and all that. You can create a new spreadsheet, also with options associated to the various cells, or create a presentation. Okay, other than that we have an app called Son, also pre-installed by Karbonn. As far as I can see, it's related to music, sort of like Pandora or something like that. Snapdeal, which is a retailer from India. And finally there's Google Translate integrated here. Those are all the apps pre-installed on the device. The bloatware is kept to a minimum, and in spite of that we don't have enough space to play around the phone, so you'll need a micro SD card to enjoy the device. Now we're finally reached the point of the verdict, and the Karbonn Sparkle-V has the following pros and cons. On the pro side, it's an affordable phone with an OK battery, 6 hours of video playback, good camera for a 5 megapixel shooter. Sometimes it feels like an 8 megapixel shooter. We have an OK display and OK acoustics, a very fluid interface, and the promise to get Lollipop and future updates very fast. The stock software is also a plus. On the cons side, the acoustics could be a bit better, the brightness could be higher, and finally the front is a total fingerprint magnet. I'm going to grade this device with a pretty high grade. The design gets an 8.8 out of 10, hardware 9.3 out of 10, and OS and UI 9.7 out of 10, especially for the promise of getting Lollipop and future updates very fast. The final grade for the Karbonn Sparkle-V is 9.26 out of 10 here at gsmdome.com. It's an excellent low to mid-range device. It's fluid, it's fast, it has a good camera and good performance, plus you can enjoy games on it and only spend $100 for it. So 9.26 out of 10 here at gsmdome.com. Bye bye.